Yo, Headliner Nation, what's going on? Your boy Kyle is back with the Fantasy Headliners, and it's Mock Draft Monday, baby. Pop, lock, and mock it. We're over on Fantrax once again. Don't forget, Fantrax. We're partnering up with them this season. Head over to fantrax.com/headliners. You head over there, create an account, let them know that the Headliners sent you. Make sure you put that down in the box where it says, how did you find out about us? Okay, sign up. We're going to have a huge best ball tournament over there. There's going to be a huge grand prize. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get you more information on that in the coming weeks, but make sure you go create your account now so you can do some mock drafts with us. If you're one of our supporters, there's going to be options for you to participate in some supporter leagues, and of course, our free best ball challenge, which we'll let you know more about coming up soon. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the draft guide is almost here. It is almost here, July 1st, the drop date for the draft guide. Pre-order it now at thefantasyheadliners.com. So when it becomes available, you're going to be able to get your hands on it right away. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a mock draft that we got to do. So we're going to go ahead and hop over to the mock draft screen so you can see how this thing plays out as we go through it. All right, Headliner Nation, here we go. Mock draft time. You got our positions there, and again, we're doing these mock drafts in a half PPR format because everything we do is in a half PPR format to give those of you talking PPR and standard kind of right smack dab in the middle of what you should do. Super standard this time. Again, next week, we're going to ramp it up a little bit. We've got some 2 quarterback stuff coming. We've got some different league types coming. Because it's so early in the offseason right now, that we're kind of just talking in like some standard type of setups, but we've got some more unique things coming up very soon. In this one, we've got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end. We've got a flex, which is a running back, wide receiver, or tight end, kicker, and defensive special teams. So I'm doing it basically the same way Jake did it last week. So you can kind of see back and forth how him and I differ in some of the things that we are doing. So the draft is underway, 45 seconds per pick. We've got a lot of our MVP members in here, so don't forget, if you're wanting to be a part of a lot of this stuff, our MVP members are the first ones to get in. So make sure that you are doing that. So first pick off the board, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. This is not, let me see if I can fix this really quick here. The draft board. I'm going to fix this draft board real quick. I'm not sure why it's not showing up correctly. Let me see. We're gonna make changes to everything. Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. There we go. Now it's popping up. That's what I like to see. Okay. Let's spread it out here. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. We're good now. I'm up on the clock, though, so I got to make my pick here real quick. Dalvin, everybody, I'm going to go with Kamara here. Draft him. Okay. Did I get him? I did. I went with Kamara there. I was going to end up going with Chubb, but I ended up going with Kamara instead. Was running out of time. Sorry. Was trying to fix the draft board for everybody. Let me fix that again here real quick. Sorry about that. Not sure why it wasn't working to begin with, but it is working now. That's all that matters. So first picks off the board, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. All right, that's pretty much standard at this point. You're going to see a lot of these running backs going off the board to start a draft. Me personally, again, because I was kind of scrambling for time there at the last minute, ended up taking Alvin Kamara. But if this was a real draft and I wasn't trying to mess around with everything and go back and forth, it would have been Nick Chubb there. I have Nick Chubb a little bit higher this year than Alvin Kamara. Nothing against Nick Chubb or nothing against Alvin Kamara, but y'all know that we love ourselves some Chubb around here. Looking at the draft board, so our first wide receiver comes off the board with Devontae Adams going at the 1.7. That's in front of Nick Chubb. Zeke is still there. Eckler, Jones. So we could be at a point this year where we see almost every, depending on your league, depending on your settings, we could end up seeing almost every single first round pick be a running back. And honestly, I don't think that I would argue that with anybody. I don't think that I would argue that. If I saw a league go running back all the way down the board, I'd be fine with that. Now, we'll see what ends up happening from a draft standpoint. I might have a little bit of a surprise for you on what I am going to be doing next. So, Aaron Jones now off the board, Zeke off the board as well. I mean, this is what the first rounds are basically going to look like. Lots and lots and lots of running backs. This is a 12-team league here, so we're looking at 12 teams. Davante Adams, in terms of wide receivers that I feel deserve a first-round pick, Davante Adams, obviously, yes, still 100% there with Davante Adams, especially with nothing happening with Aaron Rodgers, and I don't expect anything to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Austin Eckler, or Tyreek Hill goes there. That's another first-round wide receiver. I would say yes. I understand him going in the first round. That makes a whole lot of sense. Stephon Diggs is another one that I'm fine with going in the first round. DeAndre Hopkins, really no issues with that. Calvin Ridley. If you really wanted to go DK Metcalf in the first, you could. I wouldn't really be for it. TJ at the turn here. He's going with Austin Eckler to start, and then it is going to Travis Kelce. Now, I figured that was going to happen. I figured he was probably going to end up coming off the board. And personally, for me, that's kind of what I was thinking of doing in this second round to see if Travis Kelce would get there. He is not going to get there. Smitty going with Antonio Gibson, so he's starting with a balanced approach, going wide receiver and running back. Jake last week did 3 straight running backs to start the draft, okay? So for me, if Darren Waller is still at my pick when it comes back to me, I'm going to go with Darren Waller. I was going to go with Travis Kelce. Wasn't really anticipating him being there. He ended up going off the board, obviously. I'm not going to go with George Kittle. I love George Kittle. He's a beast, right? Nothing against him. However, we have an issue with injuries so far in his career, and that's the one thing that I'm a little bit worried about. So let's talk about tight ends in the second round, since that's kind of what I'm thinking about doing anyway. Stephon Diggs goes there to Optio. So he starts off with a balanced approach as well. Aaron Jones and the Stephon Diggs. If we're talking about tight ends in the second round, Travis Kelce, 100%. If you take Travis Kelce in the second round this year, I'm absolutely fine with it. Would I spend a first-round pick on him? No. Unless you're in some insane tight end premium league that has just crazy tight end scoring, then for me, Travis Kelce in the second round, yes, I'm cool with that. Cam Akers coming off the board there to need upside. George Kittle in the second round, I'm going to pass on George Kittle in the second. Like I said, a lot of injuries. Darren Waller in the second round, yeah, I'm fine with Darren Waller in the second round as well. He's going to be the main pass catcher there again in LA. Obviously, he continues to get that volume over and over and over. Several quick picks coming off the board there. Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf. So taking a look at the running backs that are going to be here, I think I'm going to go with Darren Waller depending on what Josh does here, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get one of these running backs to come back to me, because we've already got Peasy, Bootlicker, and M. St. G with running backs as well. So if any of them decide, yeah, we're going to go with a balanced approach, they might not go running back either. So I'm thinking maybe I can get a running back to come back to me. If not, I'm going to get a pretty darn good wide receiver. So this is a super balanced approach. So Josh going with Patrick Mahomes there. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't advise anybody to be drafting. I don't advise anyone to be drafting quarterbacks yet. So let me switch it up to tight ends. I'm going to go with Darren Waller in the second round, and I'm going to lock in my tight end, all right? Now I don't need to worry about it. Now I don't need to worry about Darren Waller anymore, or I don't need to worry about tight end anymore. You could also go with TJ Hawkinson, maybe a round or two later, or Kyle Pitts. They're probably going to be around that 4th or that 5th round. But again, if you're wanting to go tight end in the second round, there isn't really an argument against it, and that's because of how bad the position has been as of late. So we'll see if we can get some in. Like, if Joe Mixon can somehow get back to me here in the 3rd round, I'm smashing that button all day. 300 touches potentially in the third round. You don't see that in fantasy football. But because so many people are upset about how Joe Mixon performed last year, a lot of people not wanting to get burnt again, a lot of people are just going to be passing on him and not even thinking about the volume that this guy is going to see. So, Peasy's on the board right now. He started with Derrick Henry. Now he goes with Josh Jacobs. He's back on the board again. I mean, that Josh Jacobs pick, that's fine with me. There are some people who are still super high on Josh Jacobs that don't believe Kenyon Drake is going to be that huge of an issue when it comes to touches. I personally am not sitting. I love Josh Jacobs. I don't have anything against Josh Jacobs. I mean, last year, we told everybody, hey, if you're going to take Josh Jacobs, this is a great, he's got the potential for a lot of volume, and he had that. The line wasn't that good, and it really hurt some areas. So now it's back to me, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, all those guys coming off right there. And again, what did I tell you? From a running back approach, right? Now I get Joe Mixon in the third round, and that's 300 potential touches in the third round. That's not going to happen. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to get 300 touches. DeAndre Swift is not going to get 300 touches. If Najee Harris gets 300 touches, oh, that's crazy. J.K. Dobbins to Josh there. J.K. Dobbins isn't going to get 300 touches as much as I love him. A.J. Brown and then Keenan Allen for the wide receivers there. So now taking a look, this is where we're going to see a nice little run on wide receivers, okay? So we're going to see a run on wide receivers, and we don't have a wide receiver yet. So we're going to have to do a little bit of kind of bargain shopping as we get a little bit closer. David Montgomery coming off the board there. So let's take a look ahead. Allen Robinson, if Allen Robinson could make it back, that's amazing. If Terry McLaurin could make it back, that's amazing. If not, we're going to kind of get into this area where we're going to have to be taking some guys who really are probably going to be wide receiver 2s as our wide receiver 1. And that is one of the dangers of going kind of this route right now that I'm going, where I'm going with the 2 running backs and the tight end to start. Now, if you kind of look at it as we go back through it, and I'll show, when we get to the end of the video, I'll show you the draft board and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But as we review this mock, there's a potential where I say, man, I would have rather taken another running back in the second, or I would have rather taken a wide receiver, got another running back, and then go with TJ Hawkinson in the 4th or the 5th, depending on where he ends up going. So that's something that we will, again, look through a little bit later on when we get to the end, and that we'll have to break down as this draft progresses. David Montgomery coming off the board there, Miles Sanders as well, Michael Thomas. So now Optio starts with an Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, Michael Thomas draft. That's not that bad at all. Upside going super heavy with the running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Cam Akers, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders in the 3rd. I mean, if you're going for a super heavy running back approach, taking Miles Sanders in the 3rd round is about where he should probably go, all right? The question about Miles Sanders is, yeah, he's pretty good on a per-touch basis, but why do the Eagles feel the need to bring in all these running backs? That's kind of my concern, is that maybe they don't love him as much as other people do. And I love Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders is really, really, really good, okay? But he's got some issues. How's that offense going to fare with Jalen Hurts? Things of that nature that we're going to have to answer. James Robinson here to Smitty in the 3rd round. I'm skipping on James Robinson altogether. Unfortunately, after you draft Travis Etienne, I'm worried about James Robinson and what he could potentially see as far as a workload goes. And again, number 1 James Robinson truther here, ladies and gentlemen. Remember May? I think late May, early June, I wrote an article talking about James Robinson and told everybody to keep an eye on him. Allen Robinson to TJ. This start by TJ, except for the Kareem Hunt pick. I like Austin Eckler, Travis Kelce, Allen Robinson. One heck of a start, okay? I would have rather have seen him gone with like a Myles Gaskin right here. And if Myles Gaskin makes it back to me, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be really hard for me to skip on Myles Gaskin. But again, then I'm going to be leaving myself in a position where I'm getting sold short on wide receivers. So Julio Jones, Terry McLaurin, Chris Carson, all coming off the board there. Lamar Jackson now to Josh. So now it's back to me. We're still taking a look at wide receiver here. Let's go back to all and see where everybody stacks up on the draft board. My hope is that Myles Gaskin potentially makes it back to me, but I have got to go with a top wide receiver here. And looking at the top wide receivers, I want to go with the guy that I potentially feel will have the most volume out of all of these guys. And I am going to go with Robert Woods or Amari Cooper. It's going to be tough here. I'm going to end up going with Robert Woods. Just a smidge over Amari Cooper, okay? And it's really kind of a toss-up there. I love Amari, okay? You all know that, right? Always Amari. The dude is literally right behind me on the wall, okay? But because I'm at a point where my wide receiver 1 pick is going to be a lot of wide receiver 2 type guys, I really have to go with the guy with the potential for the most volume. And Amari Cooper could see a whole lot of volume, but he has to deal with CeeDee Lamb, and he has to deal with CeeDee Lamb, obviously, hopefully, potentially breaking out this year. That could be a big one. And then you also have Michael Gallup, okay? Those 2 guys there are going to be tough to deal with. So for me, it's really kind of about Robert Woods and only at that point, Cooper Kupp. I'm going to go with Robert Woods as the guy to potentially be a little bit safer, okay? That's why. Amari Cooper's got a little bit more of an upside factor to me. And plus, I'm thinking maybe if I take Woods there, Cooper, wrap it back around, and we're getting him in the potential 5th round. And then at that point, we have our RB1s, we have our wide receivers, and we have a really, really good start. PZ going with DJ Moore there at the turn. Myles Gaskin going to bootlicker. Very heavy running back approach to start. M. St. G went with Chris Godwin right after me. Again, the hope is potentially Amari Cooper gets back to me here, which I would absolutely love to have him here in the 5th round. I like that DJ Moore pick as well. Again, what is DJ Moore going to be? I've got some pretty good stuff coming on him. All right, I don't want to give away too much right now, but I've got some stuff. CeeDee Lamb going there before Amari Cooper. So right now I just got to make it past M. St. G, and I've got Amari Cooper in the 5th round, and that works out for me because personally, if I skip on Robert Woods, I think Bobby Trees is getting taken before Amari Cooper there. So that might have ended up working out really well for me. We'll see what M. St. G does. And we go back to kind of that tight end discussion that we were having a minute ago. Kyle Pitts is the only other one gone right now. So me personally, as I look back through this, I say to myself, Kyle, you probably could have skipped on Waller in the 2nd, and we could have gone with a wide receiver there, and we could be getting TJ Hawkinson right now. Mike Davis coming off the board there, so we're going to go ahead and grab Amari Cooper is our wide receiver too. So anyway, kind of back to that conversation, Darren Waller in the 2nd would have rather have who went after? So, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Allen Robinson, all of those guys I could have taken there in the 2nd, skipped on Darren Waller, still gotten Joe Mixon in the 3rd round. And then when it came back down to Robert Woods, I could have went with Woods there. I could have went with TJ Hawkinson. One of those guys would have still been there. Mark Andrews. Those guys would have still been sitting there, okay? But I've been seeing a lot of questions coming up in our comments recently about, hey, Kyle, would you take a tight end in the 2nd round? Well, I'm seeing those questions a lot, all right? So I wanted to show you kind of how that would play out. Again, if you're wanting, locked in stone, a guy that you've seen done it before, or did it before, do it before, can't talk, my bad. Then we're looking at, Darren Waller, George Kittle, Travis Kelce. But if we skip on a tight end in the 2nd round, you're still going to be able, you can get your wide receiver 1, you can get your RB2, you can get your RB1 if you got your wide receiver 1. It leaves us a little bit more flexibility in terms of what our roster looks like. And I'm sure all of you looking at it right now, you're probably saying the same thing that I am. If you would have skipped on that tight end there, you would have your locked in stone wide receiver 1. We could have went again with a Justin Jefferson, and A.J. Brown, a Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Allen Robinson. We could have gone with all those guys there in the 2nd. I'm fine with Allen Robinson in the 2nd round. I love Allen Robinson. A lot of people are kind of missing out on Allen Robinson right now. I don't know if it's because they think Andy Dalton's going to be the QB for the rest of the year. Maybe they don't trust Justin Fields, whatever it may be. Lock me in for some Allen Robinson this year, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever quarterback plays, it will be the best quarterback that he's ever played with. Okay. So Mark Andrews going to Smitty here at the end of the 5th. Mostert going to Aptio. My bad. Aptio. Right before that, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray. Again, these quarterbacks early. Whew, man, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't be able to. So let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at what we potentially see coming up here for wide receivers. All right, so we got a few choices here. All right, we have to start 3 wide receivers, okay? But let's go back to our running backs real quick and take a look at the running backs that we have to draft. I'm not drafting Ronald Jones this year. Not going to draft David Johnson. Not going to draft Chase Edmonds. Not going to draft Kenyon Drake. Not going to draft Leonard Fournette. Not going to draft A.J. Dillon. Damian Harris, you'll read more about him in the draft guide. James Conner, you'll read more about in the draft guide. But as we look down through here, this is why for me this year anyway, I'm okay with get your 2 running backs early, okay? Get your running back 1 and your running back 2. Get those guys early on. Because there are a few guys a little bit later that I'm feeling that I think could really, really be excellent additions to your roster. Michael Carter and Trey Sermon are those 2 guys. Now, jump early, okay? Don't let it go too long. Me personally, I'm thinking about going another wide receiver here. So I've got my 3 wide receivers. And then when it wraps back around to me in the 7th, I'm going to go with Trey Sermon if he is still available. He might not be there. All right. TJ Hawkinson going there in the 6th round. So again, team would have looked a little bit better if we would have went with like Justin Jefferson there in the 2nd and then TJ Hawkinson in the 5th. That's kind of how I'm feeling it this year. That's what I think is really going to be. And make sure that you all pre-order the draft guide. All right. It's got the perfect draft in there where I really go through and I say, hey, this year, this is exactly, from every single draft spot, okay, 1 through 12. If you're drafting here, this is what your best team will look like. Okay. This is what the perfect draft would look like for you. Almost back to me here. And again, like I said, wide receivers. All right, this is what I want to go with wide receivers. I want another wide receiver here. Because I have Robert Woods and Amari Cooper already, I feel like I'm going to want something a little bit safer, okay? Odell Beckham Jr. here in the 6th round is a little bit fascinating for me. Really good. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. He just went off the board, okay? Lots of good reports about Odell Beckham Jr. With me, though, I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster here. Definitely a guy that's going to be in line for 100 targets. He's my wide receiver 3. All right. We've got some good Juju stuff coming this offseason as well. I'm not off on Juju. The way that offense is going to operate this year, they're going to be getting the ball out quickly. They're going to be doing a lot of making plays after the catch. Deontay Johnson worries me. He had a lot of drops last season, and they're just not kind of those, mental drops where it's just like, just kind of had one of those plays where, just kind of got away from him. No, that worries me. That worries me. His drops look more to me like they're just drops. Like he's got those stone hands. He's not always getting those hands out in front of him. Sometimes he's trying to use his body and stuff. To me, it looks more like a little bit of a technique thing that needs to be better. Logan Thomas in the 6th round. Okay. All right, bootlicker. I see you out here being a little spicy. That's a little bit too early for me, but no issues with that. You got to draft your team the way that you feel. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still waiting on quarterback. Okay, we're still waiting on quarterback. Now listen. Okay, we're not going to take our quarterback here because there's lots of. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady are both going to be there. Joe Burrow, Stafford, Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, all these guys are going to be there for me when it wraps back around, okay? I'm more worried about getting another running back here, and even though it's pretty early for me, I'm going to go, obviously some of this ADP stuff it's showing up a little bit different right now because teams are just now, or players are just now starting to draft for the 2021 redraft leagues. A lot of the drafts that are happening right now are more like dynasties, and dynasty ADP is going to be a lot different than what you're seeing for redraft. So this redraft ADP right now is going to be really off for a while. But you got to move early. You got to get your guys when you feel like you need to get them. And we'll see what M. St. G does right here. But I'm going to get Trey Sermon. I like Trey Sermon. And then the goal is to probably get my quarterback in round 8 and then to hopefully get Michael Carter after that. That is my hope. Tom Brady coming off the board here. I'm going to go early with Trey Sermon. And again, it's probably a little bit early, but by the time we get to draft season and we are in full mode, Trey Sermon is going to be going in the 6th or 7th round. Okay, it's going to end up happening. There's no doubt in my mind. Michael Carter is another guy. And again, I'm hoping that I get that quarterback in round 8 and I get Michael Carter in round 9. That's going to be my hopes here. Javonte Williams is another guy. If you want to go a little bit early, that's fine with me as well. I think he's going to get plenty of touches this year. I would look for him more in like a PPR league to kind of start, though, than a half PPR league. Chase Claypool coming off the board there to Josh. David Johnson going to Most Dope. Schlump going with Chase Edmonds. Now, he went very heavy wide receiver to start. So Schlump is going with Devontae Adams, Hopkins, Allen, Julio Jones. So he's got 3 locked in stone wide receiver ones, right? And he's got Julio Jones that's kind of going to, potentially be that 1B, but that's all right. James Conner coming off the board there to James Dennison. James Conner is a guy I was hoping would last maybe a little bit longer. And maybe if Carter wasn't there, then Conner would be there, but that's okay. Trey Sermon is a guy, again, I think could end up wrestling away that starting job. James Conner, it's not nearly as known. That's going to be a pass-heavy offense. We know Kyle Shanahan can do lots of good things with running backs, right? That's why I'm going with Trey Sermon there. Just a little bit before James Conner, based on the other running backs that I already have. Jamar Chase going to upside in the 7th round. And what we'll do, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to get through kind of like my starting team, and then we're going to go ahead and jump on over to the draft board, and then I'll walk through the actual draft board with everybody so you can see it a little bit more in depth. And we'll talk about the bench and things of that nature. So who do we got here? Travis Etienne. He's coming off the board to Optio there. Smitty back on the board here. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes with a quarterback, potentially a running back here. Depends on what he's feeling on the roster. Let's go back to our quarterbacks because we want that to be our next pick. Aaron Rodgers is still hanging around. Rodgers, I would be surprised if Rodgers is there when it gets back to us. We're not drafting Hurts. More on him in the draft guide. Burrow, yep, there goes Rodgers right there to Smitty. So, yep, no worries there. Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill. Burrow, Stafford, Tannehill is going to kind of be those next bets for me. And then like Kirk Cousins. If let's say, for instance, Burrow, Stafford, Tannehill, those 3 guys are all gone when it gets back to us. Okay. Then at that point, I'm probably going to skip on quarterback even a little bit longer, or I'll go with Trevor Lawrence. Okay. It'll be Trevor Lawrence, Burrow, Stafford, or Tannehill. One of those guys. Aaron Rodgers again to Smitty, Robbie Anderson. A little bit early for Robbie Anderson to TJ, but that's all right if he's feeling like Robbie Anderson is in for a good year with Sam Darnold at the helm. Again, you got to move a little bit early, and that's what you saw me do. There a few minutes ago with Trey Sermon. Moving a little bit earlier than maybe what we think would be a great start to the team. Okay, so TJ is on the turn here. We'll see what he does. Back to this quarterback conversation again. Burrow, Stafford, Tannehill, Lawrence. Going to be kind of my guys there. Trey Lance isn't going to be starting this year. I love Trey Lance. Okay, don't get me wrong with any Trey Lance, but I can't do it yet. It's probably going to be next year. I think it's going to be a very Patrick Mahomes-esque ascent to where he sits the first year and then year number 2. And don't forget, he opted out of last college season. And because of that, he's had that year off. That's where I'm like, okay, it would be hard for me to imagine that they say, hey, Let's start a quarterback, rookie year, who didn't even play at the college level last season. I don't know if I'm going to go that far with it. We're going to have to move this draft board a little bit up here so we can see all the picks as they come in. Let's pop that up there a little bit. Kenyon Drake going to Smitty there. So we got a quarterback here with Allen, so they're not going to take one. Upside might take one. James is not. I just now realized that Lamar Jackson and Patrick Holmes went to the same team. Okay. This is, I don't know if he thought this was a super flex, but it's not. Okay. And that's, Josh, I don't mean to pick on you here, man, but listen, this is why it's super important that you need to know your draft settings prior to drafting. Because now you took 2 quarterbacks and it doesn't matter. Okay. All the way back to me, exactly what I wanted to happen. Burrow, Stafford, Ryan Tannehill here. I'm going to go with Ryan Tannehill over the other guys after the addition of Julio Jones. So I'm going to go with Ryan Tannehill as my QB1. I mean, you got Julio Jones now, right? I mean, come on, baby. Lock that offense in for some absolute bomb points this year, okay? Obviously you're losing Jonnu Smith, so you're not going to have that weapon at tight end. You have Anthony Firkser still, who last year, made some pretty big plays. And by big plays, I don't mean like in big situations. I mean, made some big plays in terms of, overall big. He definitely was a guy up there in yards per reception, yards per target at the tight end position. And really, he got a chance to step in and really kind of help take things over when Jonnu got hurt in the middle of the year. So let's just drop back here real quick. Let's try to make a decision real fast on what we are going to do with our next pick. Again, already talking about Michael Carter. That was kind of that next pick that I wanted to make. So I'm going to see what happens with that. Going over the rest of the board, this Pittsburgh defensive team here, a little bit early. That's way too early, in my opinion, for a defensive special teams. They're not going to help you win weeks. It's just never going to happen. Will Fuller, Josh going with Will Fuller there. Josh's team, super concerning to me right now because, number one, it didn't check the settings, drafted 2 quarterbacks. Make sure you check your settings before you draft, ladies and gentlemen. But then you only have J.K. Dobbins and Saquon Barkley as your running backs right now. Bootlicker taking Justin Tucker. They might be messing with me a little bit. They know how I feel about defenses and kickers this early. I think some of them, there might be a couple of them that had stepped out too. And it might be auto-drafting right now just based on positional need. And because he's got starters everywhere, it ended up taking a kicker. So that may have happened as well. But yeah, kicker, defensive special teams. It's to me now, Damian Harris off the board. Let's go ahead and grab our running back, Michael Carter, right here. And then I want to go one more pick. I want to go one more pick with this. Because I want you to see me balance out my bench with another wide receiver as well. So let's see what wide receivers. We're going to have to give us more room for the draft board. I'm going to move my face up here a little bit. Let me move my face to the top of the screen. And then let me move the draft board up even further. There we go. Okay. Making some adjustments on the fly tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That's all right. Main thing is we definitely want to see this draft board, right? And we're going to go over the entire thing here in a second. I wanted to get back to me, though, real quick, because I want to take my next wide receiver, and the hope is that Devonta Smith is going to be there for me. Devonta Smith is sitting there. Never mind. He's gone. James grabbing Devonta Smith. He's out the door there. So kind of looking through these running backs now in terms of who I want. Brandon Cooks, Jerry Jeudy, Marquise Brown. Devontae Parker as your wide receiver 4. I don't mind it. I don't mind Devontae Parker as a wide receiver 4 on your team because he's going to be definitely the wide receiver 2. And Jalen Waddle might not be the guy right away. Jalen Waddle is also there, and if you want to go with Jalen Waddle like a wide receiver 4, I'm all for that too. A wide receiver 4 that I'm really liking right now as I scroll down. Again, it might be a little bit early, but Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones right here to me is a guy I definitely want to add to my team. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 over DJ Chark. We've got some good DJ Chark and Marvin Jones stuff in the draft guide. But to me, there's a lot of big play upside there. Brandon Cooks going off the board there to Optio. Jalen Hurts finally goes in the 9th round. To me, I'm not going with Jalen Hurts over a lot of the other guys that I saw. I'm not going to be doing that. Baltimore's defensive special teams. Again, if Schlumpf stepped away for a minute and it auto-drafted for him, it's going to auto-draft based on need, unfortunately. So, he kind of gets stuck in a situation there where he gets a defensive special team because all of his other positions are already filled in. Evan Ingram going to most dope there. We know how I feel about Evan Ingram, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hoping the dude can put it together this year. I'm hoping he can get back, getting back to that guy that he was his rookie season. Got to stay healthy, got to stay on the field, and definitely can't have any drops. So let's see. I'm going to have some pretty good choices. Another really good one to kind of keep on mind, and let me make sure you can see it. Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is a guy that's making, some pretty strong moves right now in training camp. A lot of people are talking about how good he is looking in training camp. And the word is that we could see Jamison Crowder gone very, very soon. They're wanting him to take like a 50% pay cut. And if he says no to that, he's gonna be gone. They're just gonna cut him and walk away from him. And then Elijah Moore is going to be your slot wide receiver there. I mean, there's nobody there to me that is like head and shoulders above Elijah Moore. Okay. Denzel Mims is not a guy that I was super high on coming out. You have Corey Davis there, but Elijah Mitchell to me, or Elijah Moore to me, excuse me, have I been saying Mitchell? Elijah Moore to me is a guy that I'm looking at and I'm saying this could be the number 2 target in that offense. Okay, an offense that's going to have to pass quite a bit as well. So let's scroll back up a little bit and let's see what happens here. We've got Josh right before us. And then again, I'm going to make this second bench pick so you can see how I kind of even this out. And then we'll probably cut over to the full draft board and we'll talk more about how the rest of the draft played out. For me right here, I'm going to go with Marvin Jones right here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I like the upside potential. He's my 4th wide receiver, so he's not even a guy that I'm going to have to rely on, but it's going to give me a lot of that upside that I'm going to want on a weekly basis, and that's what we got to have. So let's go ahead and cut it off here. We're going to go take a look at the full draft board and see how the rest of the draft ended up playing out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the final draft board all set up and where we ended this thing at. Now, first and foremost, number 1, this 18th round pick of a second kicker. Okay, listen, may or may not have accidentally timed out at the very end, and it ended up auto drafting a kicker for me because I had Tyler Bass and Ryan Sukup put in as like my final 2 choices, and for some reason or another, it took another kicker, and it shouldn't have. So my fault on that one. Don't ever draft 2 kickers. Don't ever, ever, ever do it. I didn't mean to. It was 100% an accident. Okay, so I just want to say that first and foremost. But let's take a look at the draft. And as I mentioned during the draft already, this pick of Darren Waller in the 2nd round probably should have skipped it. Probably should have went with another running back or a wide receiver there. Then I could have went with TJ Hawkinson in the 5th round. That is definitely the game plan that I should have followed, but I didn't. Because I get a lot of questions in the comments. Kyle, would you draft a tight end in the 2nd round? And I want you to kind of see what a draft would kind of look like if you do that. You're going to find yourself in a position where you might not get the running back depth that you do want to have. Me personally, I like this. I like my running backs, but it's going to depend upon how you feel about Trey Sermon and Michael Carter, okay? That's going to be the biggest thing at this point. How do you feel about those guys? If you don't like those guys, you don't like this draft. If you like those guys, you probably might be saying right now, hey, this draft isn't that bad, all right? Me personally, I'm probably giving myself like a B minus, okay? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Definitely could have been a lot better in my opinion. Make sure in your late rounds, especially if you're drafting super early in the offseason, that you don't take a defensive special teams or a kicker early. Spend your picks on guys like I did, like Rashad Penny, okay? Rashad Penny, is he going to do a whole lot? Probably not. But we know for a fact that there are injury concerns with Chris Carson. So Rashad Penny could end up getting his shot at some point in time. I would rather hold on to Rashad Penny during the preseason than holding on to a kicker or a defensive special teams that I took way too early, okay? Because if something happens with Carson, now you've got another running back on your squad that you can start. Tariq Cohen, I decided to go with him a little bit late. Let's see what he looks like on his way back from injury. You never know. He could be a guy that, you stash a little bit late, and they do try to get him back into the fold as much as possible. I went with a second tight end, Tyler Higbee. Might as well have a couple of tight ends because you're super early in the preseason. Hold on to a couple of them. Okay, if you're holding your drafts right before your season starts, like week 3 of the preseason or something like that, at that point, then you're drafting a little bit differently because you already have a ton of information and knowledge that you've seen from training camp and the preseason. If you're drafting super early in the offseason, take a shot at those guys, all right? Take a shot at guys that you really feel like could end up being people that could start for you at some point in time. I'm, looking through the draft board right here. A majority of people had decent drafts. So down in the comments below, let me know what you're thinking about my draft. If you had to give me a grade, what would you give me? Like I said, I'm going with a B minus. Could have been a lot better. Don't love the Darren Waller pick in the second. Would have much rather went with somebody else. Is there somebody else that you see here on the draft board that you're giving a higher grade? Who do you think had the best draft? Let me know down in the comments below. Ladies and gentlemen, another solid draft. Hopefully you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace out.